And welcome to the Social Justice Forum. I am your host, Daren Jaime. We thank you for joining us. And if you're asking the question, what is the show all about? We bring you a discussion and a forum that provides a deeper understanding of the issues and inequities that so many communities face. Things such as systemic inequalities, depressing social problems. Our guests provide multiple perspectives and insights, helping us better understand and address these challenges. We invite you to stay connected to us. The Social Justice Forum starts now. And welcome back. Our next guest has over a decade of experience in business administration, energy, and engineering, focusing on the diversity and economic opportunity in the energy sector. She's been crucial in driving change across industries and communities, from federal workforce development to empowering future clean energy leaders through education. Joining me now is the founder of the Chieftess Consulting Group, LLC. Shalaya Morissette. I almost messed up her name. She's right here with us. How you doing, Shalaya?
Lovely. Thank you for having me. You got it right.
No, I had a whole bunch of things going on in the prompter, and I almost had a mind freeze. But I'm glad to have you, Shalaya. Thank you so much for being with us. And really, when we talk about energy and we talk about community, those two go hand in hand. But you're doing a great job of really trying to bridge the gap of bringing both to a different kind of place. So tell me a little bit about your work.
Absolutely. So I've been in energy, like you said, over a decade. I'm older than I look, and really what I recognized was that there weren't a whole lot of folks in energy that looked like me, and so I started doing a ton of community work and recognized that look, we're all going to pay an energy bill. But the reality is, most of us don't understand what's happening around us, and we're sort of going with the flow of things. And so, what I found was there is really innovation in younger people. They are tuned in, they're dialed in. It's sort of the number one thing that they're concerned with is climate change. Thinking about how to meet them where they are. When you say, hey, look, in 10 years, you may not be able to go and visit Miami Beach. That sort of perks their ears and says, hold on, right? I'm getting older. I want to be able to hang out and do all that fun stuff that I see. And so sort of meeting them where they are gets them excited about what can I do to change that. And so as an educator and in my heart of hearts, I started working with young people and saying, how do I get you interested? And what I found that a simple thing like coloring was it. And so I started featuring real people that are my friends in a coloring book that my daughter, who is 7 now, gets the luxury of having in her life every day. And so I looked to these women and I said, what is it about you that a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old would be interested in? And so I collected a bunch of facts about them. Most of them are in STEM, they're engineers, they're geologists, they're CEOs, they're amazing people, and featuring them sort of brought to light that it's more than just your typical celebrities that are doing great things. And so bringing that to the forefront has been so much fun for me, and being able to sort of connect them in classrooms, connect them as mentors has been a game changer.
I want to back up for a minute on something that you said. You said something about young people really have a proclivity to really enter into STEM and really are taking this head on, and particularly in communities of color, we're seeing more and more gravitation towards this. What has been the game changer to really make that pivot? Because as I said, before, we've been labeled as not, those candidates that are for STEM, but now we're seeing more and more our young people taking full advantage of it.
Yeah, anecdotally, I would say that I've seen more girl dads investing in their children, right? Saying that, the reality for them is once you have a child that is a girl and you say, oh my gosh, just because she was born a girl, she's going to be paid less. Well, if you're a girl dad and you're an engineer, you know that you can teach them anything. And sort of pouring into children at a very young age. I think my daughter was 3 when I said to her, okay, this is potential energy, this is kinetic energy, run around, and she got it. And that sort of opened up the door to what does that mean? So it really is, I think, having more parents that are intentional with their children, stopping the rhetoric that math is hard. We know that young girls by the age of 7 are deterred, right? Getting them into more coding camps, just opening the door for exposure has been the game changer. Seeing it on television, knowing that there are women, Black women in particular, in STEM roles has really shifted the mindset that you can do this and it's not for elitists. It is for everybody, and the world around you operates in the realm of physics and math, and you should know what's happening.
Yeah, you're pretty passionate about collaborating in that energy sector, and making sure that those strategic partnerships are met and leading and building a bridge. And from a person that's on the outside in, the question would be why?
Oh my gosh. The why is you're going to pay the energy bill, right?
Hmm.
Why not be at the helm and say, look, there's nobody in energy that makes less than six figures. That's the reality. I don't know anybody that makes less than that. And it's not just the engineers, right? Energy is $1 trillion industry. And it doesn't matter what level you're at, you're going to make a really strong, livable wage. And that is not just your high level scientists. That is your field workers who are out actually looking for leaks. Those are your guys that are getting up on a pole to take all of the time in the world, all the safety precautions to make sure that we have power, right? You can pretty much say that there is nothing that's not applicable in terms of degrees or no degrees, a skill set. Can you communicate with other people? Can you talk to people about what it is that you do? Can you get the job done? Are you meticulous in nature? In this field, you can be a little OCD and pay attention to detail to the next level, and you're welcomed in the space. So lots of money, lots of opportunity. It's only going to get bigger. The opportunities change every day. I tell young people, can you swim? Are you afraid of heights? Do you only want to work 6 months a year? If so, there's $120,000 waiting for you if you're willing to do offshore wind work. Yes, you're going to be out on a ship for 6 weeks at a time. You come home for a little bit, but in 6 months, you're making a hell of a salary, right?
Hmm.
So that's the why is that it's going to keep growing. It's here. It's not going away. There's an issue with energy security. So if you're in coding, we need you here. If you want to do manual labor, we need you here. There's a space for you in this industry.
For yourself, obviously, you have a huge career in this. Some of your highlights are, you definitely have uh, done some things. The president of the Boston chapter of the American Association of Blacks in Energy, first African American board member of the New England Women in Energy and Environment. And then also you've worked with committees in the Brown and Green space and other things, and also worked with the Department of Energy. When you look at energy and look at this as a career and a pathway, and as you said, you mentioned it's like, the six-figure job. What's that conversation like to tell somebody, listen, I know what traditional careers are. I know people are saying, hey, maybe I go over here, but here I am, a bona fide example as to I got some energy for you.
Yeah, there's a natural trajectory, right? Your salary is not going to go down. It's guaranteed to go up. Historically, you can look at the energy market and it's grown. Just in the construction realm of energy, it grew by 4.5%, which is more than the national average, right? So there's consistent growth. We know that our energy sources are changing. We know that there's just too many things that you can get into. It doesn't have to be power generation. It can be accounting, right? There are financial degrees just in energy because we buy, we sell it, we distribute it. There are so many layers that you can tap into depending on what it is you think you're passionate about. What I do is high pressure, right? I'm a proponent of look, everybody should go to therapy. If you're an executive, you should be in therapy. So it's someone that tells me why I have a psych degree. We need you, right? We have great health insurance benefits. We need you. There's the argument for Black women. Do we wear the bonnet of the plane? Do we wear our hair in braids? Do we wear it wild and crazy? We need hairstylists. There's just overall benefits that are for everyone. So don't think because it's naturally listed as high science that there's not a place for you. I am the example in the sense that I came from the first time my mother had sex. She got me at 15, single mom. My dad died when I was 7, and so we made it right. My mom never graduated from high school, and I went on for a master's degree and 2 bachelor's degree. So it's all possible, even if you think that you don't have resources. Once you're in, get them to pay for your degree if you want another one. There's too many things here that are to your benefit, and if you walk away from the opportunity without exploring it, I guarantee that you will say, "Gosh, I wish I had at least looked into it."
Yeah, yeah. No bonnet on the airplane. I had that conversation coming in today. I was like, no, this is not. No, 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 no. That's another. That's another segment all by itself. But let me stick. Let me stick to the matter at hand and talk about this coloring book because you paved the way. You've got this beautiful coloring book to really connect energy and tell a story. And so for somebody who doesn't know, and you have this coffee table talk about my coloring book, how would you describe it?
Yeah, it was a passion project. It was one of those things that I almost felt like my daughter has access to amazing people, amazing women, and I felt like every kid should have access to them. And this was my way of bridging that gap. Most people said, "Well, why didn't you just write a book?" And I said, "Listen, there's a bunch of old people and they're not willing to change. They're not looking into this. I've got to go after young people where their eyes are wide open to opportunity." Coloring was one of those things that when I had my daughter, I had post preeclampsia. So I was stuck in a room with very low light, and the only thing I could do was color to keep my blood pressure down, to stay focused. And so when I started on this, I said, what helps us as women, as young people, get our stress down? It's very simple. It is coloring. You can stay inside the lens, you can stay out of it, whatever you want to do. But the book really comes with facts about these women that could get your mind stimulated on other opportunities. Like I said, they're in all walks of STEM. So thinking about what does it look like to talk to someone like my mom, who is featured in the book, like my daughter, who's in the book, that does everything that you can think of from jujitsu to piano to horseback riding. And she's passionate about helping people in the same way that my mom is. And so looking at that, saying, how do I bring this to the world? The coloring book was the thing to do.
Yeah, Shalaya, talk to me about as you put the book together. Obviously, a lot of passion going in there, a lot of energy. I like that word, energy going to it. But as we know, sometimes there's challenges that come. So for you, biggest challenge in writing the book? I mean, it's a passion thing, you love it, but there's got to be a challenging side to it too.
Oh, absolutely. I had no idea how I was going to illustrate women that were my friends, right? You don't want to screw it up. And so I had this young lady, her name is Amija Jones, and I met her in Iowa. And she saw me do some public speaking and she said, mentor me. And I told her no. And she was devastated. And I said, look, I don't want to disappoint you. And so what I learned was that she's a double major. She's part of the adoption system. And so she was paying for school on her own. She was majoring in Spanish and graphic design. And I said, you know what? This kid is on it. She is so dedicated to her work. She just wouldn't take no. And so she came back to me and she said, well, Shalaya, what can I do? What do I need to know from you? And so I gave her a list and she completed the list. And I said, okay, I'm going to hire her. And she did all of the illustrations, but that was the biggest challenge, is the illustrations. Once she did that, all of the profits I gave to her so that she could go and study abroad and learn more about art. And so she ended up going to Spain. She had a phenomenal time. She studied there. She's now back. And so in the second edition, I will do the same for her or another student. But this is the challenge, is when you don't know what you're doing, is how do you network to find the right people? And thankfully, she was in my life and I said, you are the person. And she did a fantastic job of illustrating all of my friends and family members for the coloring book.
And since the book has been out, what's the response been from the public and from your perspective, how are you taking it all in?
It's been overwhelming. When I got the first 100 book order, I was kind of like, oh gosh, I've got to figure out how to get these printed in bulk. I thought it was going to sort of be a one or two off, or that my immediate family would support me. And it's been folks that have seen me speak somewhere and they say, I love this. And then they're taking the books and they're giving away to full classrooms. I got a call from a friend in Chicago and said, hey, I'm going to speak to a group of second graders. Can I get 30 copies of your book? Yes. And so I'm thankful for my network. I'm thankful for the strangers that have just ordered and supported and been unapologetic about calling me directly and say, this is phenomenal. Can I be in the next edition? So it's been overwhelming, but it's been absolutely a joy.
This coloring book represents represents visual representation, and
Yes.
so as you talk about this visual representation, what's your takeaway that that you want people to have when they see this? can experience it, and then also be able to digest it?
For me, it's all things are possible, right? So these women come from all walks of life. I have some folks that are Cape Verdean, others are, grew up in Puerto Rico. I mean, full scope of backgrounds in this. You've got to see yourself in at least one of these women, right? There's nothing in there that says this is unattainable. These are what we call regular people doing phenomenal things, and that's what I love about it. And we all know that representation does matter. Showing my daughter that she has a female pediatrician that looks like her is a big deal, because then she tells me, Mom, I think I want to be a doctor. She also wants to be an astronaut.
Mhm.
So I don't know how I'm going to afford it all. But representation absolutely matters. And it should be tangible, it should be attainable, it should be real to someone who is trying to figure it out or is just open to what's possible for themselves.
As I think about this journey that you've been on, I mean, obviously it started with you, your experience, then your education, and then, your vocation. It's been a good career in terms of really that upward trajectory. For minorities in energy, do you feel as though that you've now become that new bridge builder for those who are in energy to say, listen, it doesn't have to be that it's hard, but it doesn't have to be as hard as people make it, and you can do it too.
Yeah, some people say, they hear me speak and they're like, "You give me hope, right? You tell me that I can do anything." Even my partner says, "Gosh, you pour into me, and I think I can absolutely do anything." It's a gift. I'm honest and authentic about it. I think people have looked to me and said, Shalay, you are the face of energy. You're willing to talk to anybody who's willing to listen about coming into this industry. One of the key failures, without, there's nobody exempt from this, we don't do a great job as adults explaining to our kids what it is we actually do. And so I am, putting out the charge to people to say, talk to your kids and really show them what it is that you do and what the impact is. They don't truly understand. They know that the lights come on, they know that bills are paid, that sort of thing. But you've got to really share with them what it is you do and why you give away 8 hours your day every day to do it, right? Especially if you do love it. So I've absolutely been that person that says all things energy. Yes, I don't mind being the face of energy. If people keep asking me to do it, I'll keep showing up.
Yeah. So for people who want more information about connecting with the Chieftess Consulting Group and the work that you do, how do they go about doing it?
Absolutely. So you can visit chieftessconsulting.com. You can find me on Instagram. It's at Shalaya M. So that's ShalayAM. And I'm always posting stuff, always doing fun stuff, sort of documenting my travels. And I am very responsive on LinkedIn. There's only one Shalaya Morissette, so it's easy to find me. Just spell it right.
Yeah. Well, Shalaya, thank you so much for being with us. Shalaya Morissette, who is the Chieftess Consulting Group, LLC, the founder, and doing some big and great things. And I can't leave without asking you, how do people get the book?
Visit the website. It goes out in the mail within 2 to 3 days. Uh, just get online.
Yeah. Congratulations. Great work, Shalaya. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All righty. We are taking a quick break, but guess what? We'll be back with more right after this.
19.7% of Bronxites currently experience food insecurity. Meanwhile, instead of these nice, colorful foods, this is the best food that they have access to. If this sounds like you, there are a bunch of resources to get healthy food for free or cheap. If you want to help, you might consider donating or volunteering in one of these places. Community fridges like this one are all over the city and allow New Yorkers to conveniently donate extra food to people who might need it. Go to this link and find your nearest one. Food banks and pop-up events like these provide millions of healthy meals to families in need. These organizations are distributing meals to Bronxites as we speak and are always accepting donations and volunteers.
Welcome back. Sometimes an artist or a cultural moment, it changes the way we understand the world and ourselves. A new essay collection explores how place, memory, and music shape identity, tracing a journey from Baltimore to Black diaspora's creative hubs in Lagos and Johannesburg. Joining me now is the founder of True Laurels. We've got Lawrence Burney. And Lawrence, good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being with us, brother. And, I think about Baltimore, and I think about it's a lovely place. I've been there many times, but it's also a place for you where identity is shaped. For somebody who doesn't know, give us a little bit about Baltimore.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, I mean, I think Baltimore is a cool place. It's an interesting place. I think it's fairly small or medium-sized city. Majority Black population. I grew up on the east side of town. It's defined by a lot of things. It's a very I would say eccentric city at its heart. We all love seafood very much. Crabs is like part of our cuisine. Every place you go to, you'll be able to get like a jumbo lump crab meat thrown on something that it probably don't belong on. Yeah, I mean, it has very deep history. It's a very old city. Billie Holiday is from here. Frederick Douglass spent his formative years here. Thurgood Marshall, just so on and so forth. I think it's a place that's like steeped in Black American heritage and history, and I'm proud to add to that legacy in any way I can.
And so you are adding to that legacy. You're adding to that legacy not just in a national way, but in an international way. Your travels have taken you so far as Lagos and Johannesburg, and you're fusing your cultural experience and you bring it into this moment. So let's talk about where you are today and what you're doing.
Yeah, well, my travels over the past 10 years have, I'm a music journalist by training, and I've been doing that at least, probably since 2012. My first full-time job in media was in 2016 at a company called Vice, which is based in Brooklyn. So that job brought me up to New York City. And at the time that I was at Vice, they were kind of scaling into this internationally recognized media conglomerate. And it was a great time for journalists to be sent all around the world and just trying to figure out what was happening in different pockets of the globe. And I was fortunate enough to have editors and higher ups that trusted me and believed in my voice, believed in my journalistic instincts. And, that took me to, like you mentioned, Johannesburg, South Africa. I've gone to many places in Europe, Lagos, Nigeria, Kingston, Jamaica, and just trying to understand the through lines and the parallels between, my own experience as a Black American and Black people in the globe, around the globe, and how that art reflects their societal condition. It was nothing better than that for me. I love traveling. I love learning about what other Black folks have going on. I like seeing, what common ground we have, but I also love learning like the things that make us different, because I think we have a lot to learn from each other.
And so really you do storytelling, I mean, the work that you do is telling the story. From your experience, what story do you want to tell now?
I wouldn't say there's one particular story I'm trying to tell, but in the book, No Sense in Wishing, it is largely based on my own experiences as I've traveled through life. A lot of it, it kind of tracks me from adolescence up until I would say present day, or like, somewhat present day. And really, I'm just trying to advocate for the transformative powers of art and creativity. I think everybody can relate to encountering an album or an artist or a film, maybe even a neighborhood event that just kind of left this lasting impression on you, where everything you do from that point forward is altered and changed because you encountered something that that really either motivated you or gave you the permission to be a person that maybe you were afraid to be, or you didn't know that you were interested in one thing. And yeah, I would say like, at the root of it, the collection it's about self-discovery. But it's also just kind of like a love letter to the different forms of cultural production that left me changed.
Yeah. And as I think about writing and putting these essays together and coming out with this writing, a labor of love on some say because it's experiential. It's based on your experience, but then it's also educational too because you want to educate people on the experiences and have some forward thinking in it as well. When you look at that forward thinking component, what is it that you want people to look at in a forward way and in a way that's reflective?
Yeah, I would say, I would say like one of the goals of a music journalist or a culture journalist or culture writer, however you want to frame it, um, I think we all have this secret initiative to make people like the things that we like. So I'd be lying if I said that wasn't part of my motivation. Since I was a kid, I was always that person that's like, hey, listen to this artist, listen to this album, watch this documentary. And I feel like what I'm doing in those moments is really advocating for people to just dig deep into everything that's around us. I think everybody listens to music, everybody watches films, everybody, goes to the neighborhood cookout. But I think if you look deeper into these things, they can tell you a deeper story. If you listen to, let's say, New York drill music, which is very controversial because it's violent in nature. But I feel like if you sit with that music, you'll be able to learn what young people in inner city environments in America are feeling. It's like maybe you can look at it as in a short-sighted way of like, these kids are just running around with no guidance and they want to inflict pain on one another. But sometimes you'll listen to a song and you'll learn like, okay, this kid experienced this at 8 years old. They saw something happen to a close family member of theirs and it traumatized them. And this is how they express themselves. This is how they, in their mind, they might be fighting back against an injustice that they experienced on their own. So I just think, all the things that we kind of like absorb in a way that's can be unconscious. If you peel back the layers, there's always a story there. So I think if anything, what I'm always trying to get people to do is just respect art, respect creativity. I think there's always something there to take away,
Yeah.
whether or not it's your entertainment of choice or not.
Let me recall a conscious memory for you. Your mother did an opening act for Gil Scott-Heron.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah,
when you think about that act, how did it shape you, your career, what you're doing now?
Mhm. Well, in that moment, I was 8 years old. So, when I was growing up, my grandfather is a musician. He toured with Parliament Funkadelic for a couple European tours in the early 90s. I was an infant at the time, so I don't remember that happening. But, he lived an artist life. He drove cabs during the day. During the night, he was rehearsing with his band or playing gigs around the city or just around the general region, whether that be Baltimore, D.C., or maybe some certain parts of Virginia. And my mother was a vocalist in the jazz group that he had. So in my household growing up, the whole block was greeted by my grandfather playing his guitar on the porch, or band practice in the basement with my mother after she got off work, coming to rehearse some songs that my grandfather might have written. Um, so that show, it was just like it was like any other gig that I would be dragged along to if nobody could watch me. But I think as I got older and I learned who Gil Scott-Heron was, that became like a really pivotal part of my memory, where it's like, oh, okay, my mother was doing all these cool things, and once I got older and started to try to find my footing as a creative person, you dig deep into your history and you try to look for things that fortify um, these new journeys that you find yourself on. And I think, you know, looking back and seeing that my mother opened up for Gil Scott Heron and then me finding my own fandom of Gil Scott Heron's work as I got into my early adulthood, it really, it just instills like a level of confidence in you, but it also, I think, gives you encouragement because it makes you feel like you're building on a legacy that was already built by people in your family. So I think if anything, it just made me feel comfortable. It made me feel like, okay, this is where I belong.
When you look at culture and history, there are two big things that, all of us engage in on a daily basis. We take a look and we're a part of culture. And then on the other side, history is also part of what shapes culture. When you look at Baltimore, you look at, Johannesburg and the places that you've traveled. Talk to me about, from a music perspective, that history and culture, how the two have intersected and how they've impacted your life.
Yeah, I would say, oddly enough, I saw a lot of parallels there. Like I said, Baltimore is a majority Black city, about 65% Black most of my life. It might be in the lower 60s now, give or take. It's and while it's majority Black, obviously the majority of the wealth and the majority of the conveniences and things that people enjoy don't really happen in the Black areas. They happen where white folks tend to live. You get the sense that most of the things that are happening in those cities are catered not to the Black people there, even though the Black people are the people that inform the culture largely. So you have that, but then you also have these really cool electronic underground music scenes that have international reach. Over here we have Baltimore club music, which is born out of Chicago house and like Miami bass, some drum and bass out of London. And then in South Africa, you have Amapiano. You have, you have a long lineage of South African house. So I think they moved to a similar beat. When I was going out there, the music felt very similar to the music I would hear growing up, going to house parties or going to shows. So yeah, I think it's one of those places where, from the outside, they're framed as these dangerous places where a bunch of crime happens, and even if those things do happen, if you come from one of those places, that that's not the totality of it. That's just a small fraction of the community that lives there. So I think being from Baltimore and being from a place that I know is framed in a very incomplete way to the outside world, I tend to gravitate towards places that have a similar framing, because I know at the core of it is way more than that.
Before we wrap up, I want to give people an opportunity to tap into your work and the things that you're doing. So for people who want to get the book, the essays, talk to us about that.
Yeah, so No Sense in Wishing, my debut essay collection comes out 6 days from today, actually. July 8th. It's published through Atria Books, which is under Simon & Schuster. And it'll be available in pretty much, wherever you can find books across the country, you'll be able to find it. I'm doing a small tour, a couple of dates in New York City, a couple of dates in DC, Baltimore as well, and then just other pockets in the DMV. And you can find me on social media at True Laurels. That's TrueLaurels, both on Twitter and Instagram.
Well, certainly been a pleasure having you, my brother, and definitely want to continue to keep up the great work, letting us know a little bit about history and destiny. Great work, and look forward to seeing it and on a bigger stage and hearing you in an even greater voice. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, Laurels Burney, who is the founder of True Laurels. Peace, my brother. We thank you so much for being with us. And guess what? We're taking a quick break. Be back with more right after this. Welcome back. Senate Republicans have introduced provisions in a major bill ending federal tax support for wind and solar energy by 2027, imposing new taxes on future projects, potentially jeopardizing hundreds of clean energy developments and thousands of jobs. The bill actually shifts support towards fossil fuels, raising concern about higher energy costs, grid reliability, and U.S. competitiveness in clean energy. Now, the bill has passed, and it should go to the House, and we'll get a full update right now. Joining me now is the Executive Director of E2, Bob Keefe. And Bob, thank you for joining us. And as we said, late developments, but let's get up to speed, get our viewers up to speed as to where we are with the bill.
You bet. Thanks, Daren, and thanks for having me on.
Great.
You've got it exactly right. What this is going to do is going to make energy more expensive. It's going to threaten jobs. It's going to tighten our shackles to oil and gas, which will continue to make our air dirtier, our water less clean, our climate more unstable in the Bronx and across the country. And as you mentioned, it threatens to kill tens of thousands of jobs and frankly, derail one of the biggest economic booms we've seen in generations in this country, including in New York. And, you know, that sounds like a lot. That sounds like potentially hyperbole, but let me tell you, it's not. We've been tracking the data. We've been tracking the impacts on jobs and business investments, and we know what's already happening. And unfortunately, if this bill passes, which it probably will in the House in the next couple of days and go to President Trump's desk for signature on July 4th, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad news for our economy and our environment.
So let's talk about the economy and environment for a minute. What are the potential fallouts that, everyday people could expect?
Well, look, it's always kind of arcane to talk about tax policy. Nobody understands it, but let me tell you what has happened because of the tax policies that are now getting killed. When these policies were passed less than 3 years ago, it sparked an economic boom in this country. We've seen more than $130 billion worth of business investments and more than 400 major projects, clean energy related projects around the country, solar panel factories in upstate New York, battery factories, electric vehicle factories, big solar projects like you have at JFK that's using cleaner energy to power one of the world's biggest airports. It reduced the price of residential solar by 30%. It reduced the cost of an electric vehicle by $7,500. All of that just got killed by the Senate. And will be killed probably by the House, as I mentioned, in the next couple of days. So what does that mean? That means higher electricity prices because we're not going to have that power going on the grid that we need desperately now with electricity demand rising. It's going to mean less job security for the 175,000 New Yorkers who work in clean energy projects, not to mention the tens of thousands others who work in construction and other industries that support things like these factories and installation of solar and electric vehicle factories and things like that. And it's going to mean that we're less competitive against places like China, which is pulling ahead of the entire world in these areas. And we're going to be beholden to them, unfortunately, for the products we need instead of making them right here in America.
Yeah. So somebody on the outside looks at it and says, listen, what is the real rationale here of creating this new tax? And of course, we know revenue is always going to be the benefit, but what else can you say other than revenue is going to be the benefit of this new tax?
Well, I think the president made it pretty clear, both on the campaign trail and now in office, that he wants to do whatever he can to support the oil and gas industry. This is a gift to the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, yeah. We know that there's a lot of conversation that's being held from here. As I look, it looks pretty doom and gloom on that side. But where do you go from here, given the fact that this is going to take shape?
What's the silver lining? What's the bright side,
Yeah.
man? I wish I had more of that. I wish I could say more, but this is about as ugly as it gets, quite honestly, for our economy and our environment. Again, these tax policies that just got rescinded or are on their way to be rescinded has sparked an economic boom like we haven't seen in this country. It was finally putting us on track to get more of our energy from clean sources like solar and wind and batteries. The technology of all of those things has finally caught up with the problem. And now we have a Congress and a White House that just simply wants to kill it and walk away from it at a time when electricity demand in this country, thanks to everything from AI to data centers to everything you and I plug into a wall, is expected to increase by 50% between now and 2040. Right. We've got to figure out how to meet that demand, and we had the opportunity in front of us to do it with the cheapest, quickest to deploy power there is: solar, wind, and batteries. And unfortunately, we have folks in Washington that want to kill that.
Well, I do know that, as you look across the globe and globally, a lot of countries have really talked about the renewable interests, and they have really put forward plans to say, listen, when it comes to renewable energy, we're gonna take this seriously, and we're gonna make some positive steps. Looking at a bill such as this, seeing what's happening right now, how do you measure, or how could one measure, the United States in the area of commitment towards this? Because as leadership leads, we have to follow, but from those on a global perspective, what do you think that says to them when it comes to the United States?
Well, look, first of all, let's remember that America invented this stuff, Daren. I mean, look, the solar panel was invented at Bell Labs in New Jersey. We deployed the first wind turbines at scale and the technology behind that in America. We created the technology behind the lithium-ion battery, and then we let it all go away. As a result, China right now, for instance, is putting more clean energy, renewables, on its grid every year than we actually have in total in this country. Yes, they're still putting up coal plants. They need to quit that, but they are deploying more clean energy than any other country. We've got to catch up with that. China now produces more electric vehicles than any country in the world. So if the president is sincere about wanting to compete against China and the rest of the world, if he's sincere about wanting to reinvigorate manufacturing in America, if he's sincere about addressing the energy emergency, which he's probably right about, we need as much electricity as we can these days, then the policy that Congress just passed and that he's going to sign probably on July 4th does the exact opposite of all of those things.
But Bob, I think also one of the things that we have to talk about is the fact of the job creation and job loss, right? We talk about the employment rate. When we look at a bill such as this, what is the potential job loss rate that we're going to see here?
Well, look, the Building Trades Union just came out with a report that says the rescinding of these policies are going to kill nearly 1.75 million construction jobs. That's just construction jobs building this stuff. Now, across America, there are 3.3 million people that work in clean energy occupations, solar panel installers, wind turbine technicians, yes, but also think about it, energy efficiency workers that make our buildings more energy efficient. Factory workers building electric vehicles and Energy Star appliances that reduce the demand that we need and the cost of energy in America. All those jobs are now at risk. I mean, and it's not an overstatement to say that, because look, when you roll back these policies, that means less, or make them more expensive. That means less demand. That means less need for the jobs for the businesses that are in this industry, and it's a huge industry.
Right. Well, as a global force, how do you see us?
We just went from far behind to losing.
Mm. And when we talk about China, which is always the thought of, the thought across the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, well, look, think about it. I mean, China right now controls about 90% of the market for solar panels in the world, and it's a huge industry. Clean energy is estimated as a $23 trillion global business. China controls about 90% of China and a couple other countries control about 90% of the market for solar panels. It controls about 90% of the market for batteries. America, quite frankly, did not have a dog in the hunt, Daren. We were so far behind that we couldn't possibly catch up. But guess what? 3 years ago, when these tax policies were passed as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, since then, we've seen more than 60 solar panel factories announced across America. We've seen 50 battery factories announced across America. We've seen more than 140 electric vehicle factories and supply factories for that industry announced across America. Again, more than 125,000 jobs announced just in the past 3 years. That's where we were headed. But guess what? Since Congress started talking about this, since January, we've seen more than $15 billion worth of those projects canceled, 11,000 jobs canceled. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's before they passed this bill that they just passed in the Senate yesterday, and they're going to pass in the House this week. So $15 billion worth of American investments in America, 11,000 jobs already lost just because of the threat of this legislation. Think about what's going to happen when the president signs it.
I asked the question before about where we were globally, and I think that that's going to be huge. But
Yeah.
now I turn my attention to where are we in the sight of people here in America? Because when you think about it, a lot of people behind this bill are going to have questions, and not just questions, they're going to have reservations because
Yeah.
as prices are going up, the first thing they're going to say is energy prices, utility prices, these things are set to probably see, we've seen record numbers before, probably reintroduced.
Yeah. Well, look, here's the deal. And you don't have to be an economist to figure this out. Last year and this year, 90% of all new energy put on the grid came from three sources: solar, wind, and batteries. Why? Not because utilities necessarily like polar bears or parts per million or whatever, because it's the cheapest, quickest to deploy power there is. So 90% of the power that went on the grid last year and is expected to go on the grid this year came from those three sources. What Congress just did was make them much more expensive to do that and much harder to build those projects. As a result, there are studies that show that consumer costs are going to rise as much as $400 a year for electricity over the next decade. Businesses are expected to spend 10 to 15% more on energy just to keep their factories running and the lights on in their offices. And that's going to have a ripple effect throughout the entire economy.
Yeah. I think a lot of Americans, Bob, are hoping that, a part of a way to stem the tide would be the midterm elections coming up. And if we can get possibly some change in the midterm elections when it comes to energy, yeah, there could be some positive outcome. Talk to me about this, because having this on the docket, swing states, other states, how big is this going to play a role in the hearts and minds of people when we start talking about some of the, we got a bunch of issues, but this is certainly going to be, I believe, one of the things that we're going to be really focusing our attention on in conversations.
Well, what I'd say is this. First of all, my organization is nonpartisan. We work with Republicans, we work with Democrats, we work with anybody we can to make our economy cleaner and stronger and to make our environment better for all of us. And what I would say is that there should be nothing partisan at all about creating jobs, driving economic growth, being globally competitive, making sure we have the energy we need at a price that we can afford. What I will also add is that when you look at those 400 projects that I mentioned have been announced and are coming out of the ground, basically, and all across America, 80% of those projects, the investments in those projects are going to Republican congressional districts. So Georgia is leading this clean energy boom right now. North Carolina is not far behind. Tennessee, Kentucky, Louisiana, believe it or not. These are where these solar panel factories are being built. It's where battery factories are being built. I was just in Georgia not too long ago, and the world's biggest, the biggest solar panel factory in the Western Hemisphere is being built in the district of Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene. One of the biggest electric vehicle factories in the country is being built in Savannah in the district of Republican Buddy Carter. The governor of Georgia has said he wants to be the electric mobility capital of the world. And he was probably on track to do that until this legislation passed in Congress.
Right. Fossil fuels. Bring that to the forefront right now. Is there going to be a more heavier reliance when it comes to fossil fuels here in America?
Well, look, obviously, if consumers are given less choices in the kinds of cars that they're driving, less choices in the kinds and where they get their electricity, it's going to keep us shackled to fossil fuels even more so. If they're part of the problem there, though, is that fossil fuels, whether it's oil and or gas or what have you, prices for those fuels are on the rise, and they will continue to rise. Quite simply, when you get your fuel for free, whether it's from the sun or the wind, and you can store that energy in batteries now, that reduces a lot of cost of energy. When you have to pay to drill it and pump it and burn it up, that costs a lot of money. You've got to pay for your fuel. It's like anything. So we're going to continue to see prices increase if we continue to stay shackled to fossil fuels, for sure.
Yeah. As you look to the future right now, what advice do you have for those in your industry, given the fact that this will probably definitely, by the time we air, be in effect?
Yeah.
What advice do you give for those in the industry right now?
Well, I'd say that, we've faced setbacks before.
Right.
And we will continue to face setbacks going forward. But the fact of the matter is solar, wind, batteries is still about the cheapest power that you can develop right now. The American people have shown in poll after poll after poll that they want more choices in clean energy. They want more choices in energy. They want more choices in how they get around, whether it's in the Bronx or in LA or any other place in this country. And the other thing to think about is that even if we go to, let's say, nuclear or gas, like some people are saying we can do, okay, fine, let's look at nuclear. It's going to take at least 15 years and billions of dollars to build the next nuclear plant, whether it's in New York or where have you. Okay, what about gas? It's going to take at least 5 to 7 years just to get a gas turbine built, to get a gas plant built. And by the way, both of those things would be more expensive to build than a comparable size solar farm or a wind farm, and be able to produce just as much energy as that. So the economics are still in the favor of clean energy and a clean energy transition. But it gets mighty hard to get there as quickly as we need to get there when Washington keeps throwing up speed bumps and digging potholes in front of the road.
Yeah. Once again, let me dig back for a second. You got about 400 projects and plans that are going out there right now when it comes to energy and clean energy. When this bill takes effect, how do we see these playing out with the 400 projects? Do you see them coming to a halt? Do you see things closing down?
Well, again, we know what's going to happen because we know it's been happening since January 1st and talk of rescinding all these policies started. Again, we've seen $15 billion worth of projects canceled, battery factories, solar panel factories, electric vehicle factories ranging from Ford to Rivian to GM scaling back already. And again, that was before the policy was passed. Businesses have to have some market certainty. They can only plan when they know what's coming. They had planned over the past 3 years to invest in America because they thought these policies would be in place for the next decade. What Congress just did was pull the rug out from underneath them, and they're going to have to adjust. And they're going to adjust by shuttering or shelving plans to expand factories. They're going to adjust by reducing workforce at the factories that they have. And they're going to have to additionally figure out how to pay for increased costs of energy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been great talking to you. Certainly, we want to bring you back and have more conversation. For people who want to find out more about this and really stay a little bit closer to the vest, and maybe somebody who's not familiar wants to get some more information, what would you recommend as some highly credible sources to really track what's happening here?
You bet. Well, if you want to check out those 400 plus projects, including about a dozen in New York, go to e2.org/announcements, or you can just go to it from our homepage. You can find out more about those projects. You can go to cleanjobsamerica.e2.org to see how many people work in clean energy in the Bronx, in across the state, or anywhere else in America, and you'll get an idea of what's at risk here.
Yeah. Bob, it's been great having a conversation with you. Certainly, I want to thank you for bringing us up to speed. Of course, we're going to follow this, as we said, at the time. Now, let me tell my viewers again, at the time that we're going on, it hasn't quite passed all the way. Is the anticipation that it passes? Yes, it is. And, of course, what it does, we're going to have Bob back on again, talk a little bit more about it. We'll unpack it and, see what the future holds. But, Bob, stay strong, my brother. Great talking to you, and we'll talk soon.
Likewise, sir. Thank you so much.
All righty. Well,
Take care now.
Thank you. All righty. We let you know we come to the end of our show today. Hope you enjoyed this week's discussion on the Social Justice Forum. If you're rewatching this week's edition, catch the Recablecast right here on BronxNet.org. If you want to join the conversation and present your point of view, well, visit our social media at BronxNet TV. And join us next week. We continue to elevate the discussion and bring further awareness on issues across the globe and here locally. I'm your host, Daren Jaime. Take care. God bless.